Warning: the material discussed in this show may be sensitive or a trigger for some listeners. Strong language and topics are discussed. We talk with active duty service members and practice OPSEC at all times. You have been warned.
The Bipolar DM, Jason Eastman. His show talks about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Check us out right here on Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, also on WLFE-DB.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So take a seat, sit back, and get ready for the Bipolar DM.
Welcome to the Bipolar DM broadcast. I am your host, Jason. This is a show about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. If you want to get a hold of me, you can reach me by email at thebipolardm@gmail.com or visit my webpage, www.thebipolardm.com. There you'll find previous episodes of my podcast, as well as my blog, and also resources on indie writing, Dungeons and Dragons, and mental illness. You can find us on WLFE-DB.com and Stream TV, the Variety Unlimited channel. If you are a fan of Facebook, you can also find us on Facebook as well. The handle for that is @BipolarDM. And also, we do have a Facebook group for the members, too. If you want to become a member of the Bipolar DM Nation, we got you set up right there at the group. Just go and do a search for the Bipolar DM Nation. And it is free to sign up. All you have to do is just accept one rule, which is to respect everyone. If you're able to do that, then we can avoid having 10 pages of rules before you can get in through the front door. We have merchandise available on our store. That's found at my Facebook page at Bipolar DM. We have t-shirts, we have buttons, and we have stickers now that are available for sale. If you're a Patreon supporter, you can join our Patreon group and support the show that way as well. We have a membership tier starting at $5 going on up, and we have goodies available at each level there. You can check us out at patreon.com/bipolardm. Be sure to check out our other shows that we have on WLFE-DB, such as Across the Pond, Just Cindy, Meet the Authors, Metal Mayhem, Creepy Parlor, Unfiltered Talk with Bryce, and Where's My Sage, among other shows. We got a ton of them there. If you go to WLFE-DB.com, you can find that as well. And we're also proud supporters of Safe Space. This is a virtual safe space for you if you are going through a crisis right now. We're not psychiatrists, we're not psychologists, we're not here to solve your problems, but we're here to listen, and we're not here to judge. And so if you need a virtual safe space to go to if you're having problems, go ahead and check us out. If you go to WLFE-DB.com and click on the Safe Space button, you can get hooked up with some resources. We got a ton of them available to help you out through whatever issue that you're going through. Veteran Podcast Awards is coming up. If you go to veteranpodcastawards.com, if you're a veteran and have a podcast, you can register from now until July 31st. Voting begins August 7th and goes until September 10th. Winners will be announced on October 5th, 2021. And that's all I got in the introductions there. We are going to be talking with Jason today about Dungeons and Dragons and mental illness and all that. So let's go ahead and bring him on board. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hail and well met.
Yes, a traditional Dungeons and Dragons greeting. Hail, well met, adventurer. So let's just go ahead and get into it. How long have you been playing Dungeons and Dragons?
I've been playing since 1989, 7th grade. A group of outcasts and myself. One of them was an experienced DM for being a 7th grader, and we started playing Dragonlance.
Outstanding. So, how did you get involved in Dungeons and Dragons? I mean, what was it that spark that got you started?
Oh, yes. So, no more than maybe a month or two earlier, that summer of '89, my mom bought me a book, a fantasy book that and I've never read fantasy books at that time, except for
Hmm.
maybe The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And it was called Dragons of Autumn Twilight,
Hmm.
the first of the Dragonlance Chronicles. And I think I had that read in 4 days, maybe even less. I ate it up. And
Yeah.
my mom went out, got me the next book. Next thing I know, I had a whole library shelf full of them.
Yeah, that's how I got started too on that exact same book, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. I had actually found the copy just sitting on the table. And so I picked it up. Never read fantasy before, other than Pierce Anthony. I've read some of his books, but never nothing like this. And when I found out that this was based on a game, I had to get a hold of it. I had to get a hold of this thing called Dungeons and Dragons once I read the book because I just wanted so much to be a part of that world that was Dragonlance. And so it was just an amazing book that got me started. And I just about a year ago bought the trilogy again off of eBay and
Nice.
started reading through them again. And I was kind of worried that you know how it is when you're a kid, how great things are, and then you read it again as an adult, and it's like, oh, maybe I don't see how I really got into this. But the Dragonlance novels, on the other hand, were just as great reading them again as an adult as when I was a kid reading them.
Here,
And
here.
there's just something timeless about the story by Weiss and Hickman, that how they did it. It was an amazing, amazing story.
I
So
completely agree with you on that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So now you also have a mental illness too. Is that correct?
It is correct. As far back as I can remember, I've been different than most people.
Mhm.
And when I was about 30 years old, I was finally diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And then
Hmm.
more recently, it's been suggested I may have borderline personality disorder instead. They say, I guess, that they're very similar.
They
At
are. I
least
have
that's
both
what
of
they tell
those.
me.
Yeah, I have both of those diagnoses, and I question the second one about the borderline of whether or not I truly have it because I don't have a lot of the traits that they do, that typical borderline people do.
Mm.
But I'm also a really hard one to peg because all the doctors I've had over the last 20 years since I've been diagnosed with bipolar have their own little pet theories about what's wrong with me, but nobody seems to know exactly what exactly is the malfunction there. So,
I can relate
so,
with that.
so how has Dungeons and Dragons helped you with dealing with mental illness?
Well, at first, in the beginning, junior high and high school, being a player, it was about escape. It was
Hmm.
about getting away from the real world. But then once I became a dungeon master, right around the year 2000 when 3.0 came out, uh, it became about social skills and it became about confidence. That was a big one.
Oh
Social
yeah.
skills and it just an all-encompassing umbrella of healthiness that I could go on and on about. I could pick a subtopic and just talk about it. But D&D definitely helped me with my social skills. It helped me uh, self-esteem, big time
Hmm.
self-esteem. Lots of things out there that D&D helped me with.
Let's pick on the social skills there. What particular social skills did you develop playing Dungeons and Dragons and being a dungeon master? What kind of social skills there?
Well, first off, I'm the NPCs. I mean, every time one of my players wants to talk to the bartender, I have to get in the mindset of that bartender, and I have to talk to them. I can't. I can't talk just willy nilly and awkwardly. I have to talk clearly, and I have to speak in a way where the player understands in the plot point or understands what I'm trying to get at. And so social skills really helped me speak more eloquently, uh, uh, help me think about the words I'm going to use before I talk. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I can go on a side tangent just for a moment. Before D&D,
Yeah, go ahead.
I would talk about 5 conversations at once. My
Mm-hmm.
friends and I don't know how they kept up with me. I could just go on and on and on and on about any and all conversations. And then with D&D, I learned how to focus my topics. I learned how to focus on 1 or 2 conversations, 1 or 2 focus areas, but at the same time, I was able to play multiple NPCs. So I was able to do different behaviors and different play styles for each NPC.
Okay.
And then another tangent, if I may, the last one, and then I'll pause, is
Okay, go ahead.
the social skills with the other players. Actually talking with players, like that was a big deal when I would start going to the D&D stores and I would start running campaigns at the stores. I had to actually like talk to people and be like, hey, you want to join my campaign? And, I couldn't like be all weird and freaky, and I had to learn how to actually introduce myself, how to come up and present myself, and stuff like that. I'll pause.
Okay. No, that's great. No, that's exactly what I want to talk about is the things that have helped you with Dungeons and what Dungeons and Dragons has helped you, especially with the social aspect, because having a mental illness and having that stigma attached to you is it's a drag. It's a drag on you socially, it's a drag on you mentally. And so being able to find yourself in Dungeons and Dragons when most people lose themselves in that game is a great thing to be able to find yourself within it, and then to be able to develop those social skills, develop coping mechanisms and stuff like that, through play and how to deal with problems and issues when they arise. Because I mean, being a dungeon master myself, you know how it is when the game goes off the rails. When when the players come up with something so out there that you got to improvise and adapt and overcome. And that's one of those great things about D&D is you learn how to think on your feet and
Yes.
how to do that. Now, how long? Let's see. What is well? Actually, I guess without going too deep into, but what is your favorite edition of Dungeons and Dragons so far?
Oh my goodness. That's a tough one. Okay, so I do have a little piece in my heart for second edition,
Me
because that's
too.
what I started with. But I'm gonna go probably I might go against the grain, but I'm gonna honestly say I really love fifth edition.
Same here.
Um,
I love
it's
it.
simple. It still has the mechanics. It's a great addition, and I'm really happy that they haven't scrapped it yet.
Yeah. One of the things I love about it is how easy it is to bring new players in. Somebody who's never
Mhm.
played Dungeons and Dragons before, and how quickly you can get them up to speed because there's not a whole lot of mechanics, not a whole lot of rules to do. And so it's been great with fifth edition for my new players to learn how to play.
I completely agree. When I run a lot of Dragonlance campaigns, and quite often I will get many players that have read the novels inside and out and never played a single game of D&D. And so it's very fun when I get those players because you get to show them just what they've been missing out on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the fact that you can enter into a story and become a character within it uh, is amazing. And now let's talk a bit about Dragonlance. For those
Yeah,
of you who are not familiar with Dragonlance, go ahead and kind of explain in a nutshell what Dragonlance is.
Dragonlance I saw Joe Manganiello, if I said his name right, say this once. Dragonlance is the Star Wars of of uh, of D&D. I
Hmm.
believe you mentioned it. Someone else mentioned it to me as well, and I ate it up when I heard that. It was like the light bulb went on, and I'm gonna run with that. Uh, we have diehard Star Wars fans of the classic trilogy. Uh,
Hmm.
we've got those diehard Dragonlance fans as well. Dragonlance was not just a willy-nilly world. It was and I'm going to say it right, it was an epic saga. The first of its kind when it came out, and so when D&D players first saw this DL1 Dragons of Despair, and it told this amazing story, and then shortly after a novel came out based on that module,
Hmm.
mind blown.
Exactly.
That's what Dragonlance is about.
Yeah, it's a typical fantasy world. As far as what you would think, like on the very well developed, like Tolkien had developed his world extensively. Dragonlance also was extensively developed because it was a game.
Absolutely.
And so there's economy, there's
Hmm.
characters, you got your major players, you got your minor players,
Hmm.
you got specialized monsters that are not found anywhere else in D&D canon.
Hmm.
So like the Draconians and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So you have all these things that are going together, and then plus Weiss and Hickman are outstanding authors, very very
Absolutely.
well, very talented authors, and so they brought together all these components and a game that they had been playing into the novel. And so in
Yes.
an essence, they condensed down what it is to play Dungeons and Dragons into a novel with your typical party, where you have your
Hmm.
cleric, you have your meat shield,
Hmm.
you have your well, you don't have a bard, but you do have let's see, you got your thief, you got your wizard.
Oh, might I interject?
Yes.
So I'm converting Dragonlance into fifth edition, and
Yeah.
as we all know, during the War of the Lance, up until Zach Saroth, there were no true clerics. I actually made Goldmoon a level 5 bard. And I'll tell
Oh.
you, it's amazing. I mean, one, she gets bardic inspiration for DL1.
Mm.
I mean, she's originally in first edition, she was a cleric. Well, how can you be a cleric if there are no clerics? So I will say this: I found a way to make bards in Dragonlance.
I love the bards in fifth edition. They are
I
jack of
do
all
too.
trades, master of none, and they've made them a lot more powerful than they were in previous editions. And so
Yes.
the bards are one of my favorite characters to play, especially the bard barbarian combination. So he's not quite so squishy. He can do a lot of damage, but also you got bardic inspiration and other spells and stuff like that. And so I've been having a lot of fun playing my bard barbarian.
Nice.
So now you playing in Dragonlance, you're also playing in Eberron as well. Now Eberron is more, it's kind of like steampunk,
Yeah.
but magic is what's used to fuel the machinery in
Correct.
this world. And so you have living constructs, these living robots
The
called
Warforged.
Warforged, which I
Yeah.
love a lot. And you're running a campaign on there too.
Three of them actually. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm running Oracle of War. It's the Adventures League series. It's a 20-part series. You get to level
Wow.
up with each session, which is kind of unique. But it is people are loving it, and the reviews on it are really good. And I'm gonna agree with all of the reviews. I
Yeah.
absolutely love Oracle of War. It's a steampunk with magic. But
Mm-hmm.
then throw in the artificers. I mean, to me, the artificers are like the opposite of that. Uh, but yes, I love Eberron as well. It would probably be my second favorite
Yeah.
campaign world.
Now, how many campaigns are you running all together?
Altogether, 7 campaigns, 4 Dragonlance campaigns, and 3 Eberron campaigns. My players a while ago finally dubbed me a professional dungeon master.
I would say so with 7 campaigns, but they're not all weekly campaigns, though. That's correct. That's you're running a couple bi-weekly ones,
I
and
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you're not every single day of the week playing Dungeons and
Oh,
Dragons. That
no,
just
no. I would say maybe 4 to 5 days a week.
yeah, which is pretty cool. Now I've heard talk, and we're going to be jumping around here, but I've heard some
Okay.
talk about the possibility of a Dragonlance movie. Have you heard anything about this?
um, I like to play Sherlock Holmes.
Hmm.
I like to do my deductions, my deducing, and I would say um, the movie's going to be the hard one, the hard sell, I think.
I
But I
think
will
it's going
say,
to be more like Game of Thrones, where they did like HBO
yeah,
did those series instead of just like one 2 hour movie. You're now going to
for each
have
book.
you're going to have entire season for each book and stuff like that, or whatever. But
Yeah,
yeah,
like a mini series, a 10-part series for each book. I would agree on that. I would totally
yeah,
agree. I mean, they do have a D&D, is it movie or series coming out? Chris Pine, I heard, is in it. A
really,
few other big name actors signed up for it. I guess a lot of money is being thrown into this. A lot of creativity is being thrown into this, which I've heard, which I'm hopeful for. Now, as
yeah.
for the world, there is no official uh, mention yet, but I heard it might be the story of Drizzt. Mm.
Oh, okay.
So
And for
I
those of
didn't
you who are
say
not
anything
familiar,
though.
yeah, but for those of you who are not familiar with Drizzt, Drizzt is a dark elf from the Dungeons and Dragons series.
Mm.
El Salvador, I think, no, R.A. Salvador, I believe,
R.A. Salvador.
is the
Yeah.
writer or the titled author. With as many books as that's putting out, it's physically impossible for him to write that many books. So you got a lot of ghostwriters involved in that series, but it's based on a dark elf who kind of turns his back on the dark elf society, and now is trying to find himself in the world and all that. So that's kind of the basics of what Drizzt is, or what that's about.
Mm. I mean, the
Uh,
chances of it being the story of Drizzt are probably low, but
mhm.
ooh, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, especially only really hardcore Dungeons and Dragons fans would really catch it. I mean, if they're going to try and sell something to the general population, I don't know if they'd choose Drizzt. I mean, as great a character as he is, um, just because it's very obscure.
Mm.
You have to really know your lore in order to pick up on that. So, well, speaking of characters, who is your favorite character out of the Dragonlance series?
When I was a teenager, it was a tie between Raceland Majer and Tasselhoff Burfoot. Now that I'm
Yes.
older, I've gone through much therapy and psychiatry and medication, and have calmed down my brain. I can easily say Tasselhoff is the winner.
Yep.
Uh, I don't have
Tasselhoff
that angst
Burfoot.
that I used to.
Yeah. And Tasselhoff Burfoot is a halfling from the series,
Kender.
or a Kinder. Yes, that's one of the renames. So even though he's technically a halfling, he's a Kinder, and and so that's who that character is from the Dragonlance series. Personally, I do like Rosalind a lot. He is the most complex of the characters. I think. I mean, everybody has their own internal struggles, which Weiss and Hickman really do play up very well. Like
Yes.
Tanis and his struggles with being half elven
Mm.
and all that. Yeah,
Torn between Lorana and Kitiara.
exactly. Torn between two women and also two different lives.
Yeah.
And then you have Flint Fireforge, who's getting on in years, so he's having to deal with getting old as a dwarf. I mean, he's pushing, 500 or something like that? I mean,
148
100.
years old, I believe.
Yeah, he's pushing it up there.
He is.
So,
Yep.
so great, Gold Moon had her struggles with the village, and then also having to deal with being a chieftain's daughter and being in love with a commoner, and then having their entire village wiped out. So that kind of like negated, the issue they had in the first place. So, but all right, we're going to go ahead and break for commercial real quick, and then we'll come right back and talk some more.
All right.
Let's see.
WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels: Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows, LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows, Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows. Search for your favorite shows like Where's My Sage, Inside the Drag Closet, Across the Pond, Everything Yet Nothing, Paratalk Radio, Step into the Paranormal, The Creepy Parlor, Just Cindy, and more. Now you won't miss an episode. Remember, follow Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Make sure you subscribe and follow your favorite WLFE-DB radio shows. You can find our shows where you listen to your favorite podcasts, like Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and more. WLFE-DB Radio is looking for podcasts to join our family. You don't have to fit any strict genre. We're a plethora of shows. If you're looking to jump on a growing network, then contact us at WLFEDBradio@gmail.com.
Wow, Amazon Music just got a whole lot better. Your favorite shows from WLFE-DB Radio can now be found there. Yes, we are on Amazon Music, found under podcasts. Download the app, find podcasts, and search all of your favorite shows. Shows like Where's My Sage, Across the Pond, Everything Yet Nothing, Skeptical Help Bar, The Creepy Parlor, Just Cindy, and much more. Now you don't have to miss an episode ever. Amazon Music is WLFE-DB Radiofied.
More from WLFE-DB Radio Network after this.
Hey guys and dolls, this is Casey DeVille, the better half of DeVille Inc., Baltimore, Maryland. If you're ever in Baltimore, stop in and see me and Tony. Invisible Bree, 5920 Eastern Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. Give us a call if you're in the area at 410-400-9641, or look us up on the web at DeVilleInc.com. DeVille Inc., where we specialize in you.
Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE-DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam! There you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com. You're listening to WLFE-DB Radio. Now, back to our program.
Welcome back. This is Jason with the Bipolar DM show, and I'm on the other end with Jason Eastman, who is a lifelong Dungeons and Dragons player, but also suffers from a mental illness, just like me. Now let's talk about the early history of Dungeons and Dragons. You caught the tail end of the satanic panic of the 80s. And now what was that like for you? Did you have any issue whatsoever with that whole deal going on?
I did actually in the beginning, junior high and high school. It left a pretty bad lasting impression. Even today, I'll admit that it's kind of hard to tell people, "Well, I'm a professional dungeon master. This is what I do for a living." Because you just kind of worry that they're gonna throw the Bible at you. And
Yeah.
I did see it a lot because I grew up in a pretty uh, certain type of neighborhood that just had certain types of people that uh, fell for the satanic panic, let's say,
Mhm.
and so it was definitely difficult to live to play during those times. You couldn't really talk about it or anything. We definitely kept quiet about it.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not familiar, the Satanic Panic of the 80s was basically a campaign by the religious right against Dungeons and Dragons. And so what it did was it made a whole lot of false accusations, such as demon worship, murder, suicide, drug use. I mean, even the FBI opened a file on Dungeons and Dragons and Gary Gygax and involved with all that. And so it was a tough time to be a player during the Satanic Panic. I was overseas though when I started playing in Japan, and in the early '90s, and so I didn't have to face any of that backlash going on there. But I always was very interested in how everybody else dealt with it, and kept everything on the down low. You didn't talk about it. But now, what is Dungeons and Dragons like now, as far as versus how it was back then?
I would say uh, I've seen a complete 180. It wasn't a drastic transition. It was definitely a slow transition. But I'd say within the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, D&D has been much more accepted and open, popular, trendy. I mean, it's becoming mainstream, which is pretty cool. I mean, like,
Yeah,
I always say to people, escape your world, and that's what
I like
D
that.
and D
Yeah.
is. Thank you, and that's kind of like my slogan as my DM. So, but yeah, it's definitely becoming mainstream. I've noticed, especially with the pandemic, because I do all my games online. I actually use
Hmm.
Fantasy Grounds. Uh, it just boomed. I mean, I cannot get enough. I mean, I have to turn down players left and right all the time, especially if I start a new Dragonlance campaign. As soon as I say I need players, I've got enough players to start 3 campaigns within a few hours.
Man, that's a rarity now. Back in the day, you'd be scrapping, the bottom of the barrel trying to get anybody to play. And now it's just you turning people away. It's amazing turnaround.
It is. It is.
Yeah, and I personally, I'm not a big fan of the virtual tabletop. I'm still old
Hmm.
school theater of the mind. I have played on Fantasy Grounds. I have played on other virtual tabletops and played extensively on them, so I'm very familiar with them and how they
Hmm.
work. But man, I still like good old fashioned theater of the mind and minis. Bringing out the minis too. So that's one thing you're really
Oh yeah.
excited about with the game is now got a mini cam, so we can actually start watching. Having the minis for the combat sequences and stuff like that, which is awesome.
Very nice. Yeah. I am right up there with you too. Like I do miss the personal interaction of being in a dungeon room and having a table full of maps and minis. I do agree. I find being online, it's a very different world, very
Hmm.
unique. I've got players all around the world, the Philippines, Ireland, Quebec, England, all over.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's an eye opener. That's all I
Hmm.
can say. It's an eye opener. And I totally respect when people are like, "Oh no, I'd rather sit at the table." And it's like, I some days I would too. But
Yeah.
being able to meet these people around the world and learning about these lives of people all over it's an eye opener.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I've run a couple virtual tabletop games too, just not through Fantasy Ground, just through Discord.
Yeah.
And we got players all over the United States that are playing right now. We were eventually, when we first started before the pandemic, we all gathered at the comic book store.
Hmm.
And that was great. But then when pandemic hit, we switched over to Discord. And then two of the players moved, but still wanted to play. So we were able to do and keep this game together despite distance and stuff like that. And it's amazing, especially recently I did Gary Con,
Hmm.
and I ran about 16 hours of game there on Gary Con, and I had people from everywhere. I had Germany, I had
Yeah.
Australia, and it was just amazing just where these people were at and willing to play at 1 o'clock in the morning their time, so they can catch the game, and stuff. So it was really amazing. There's pluses and minuses to everything. And, the
There is.
pluses on the virtual tabletop is that it's easier to get together because you don't have to travel across town to go to a game store or somebody's house.
Hmm.
You get people from all over the place too. So you're going to get players that you never would have normally have at your table. So those are the two
Hmm.
big things right there. But you miss out on the social aspect of the game when you're playing virtual. I mean, yes, you get some socialization, but it's not quite the same as when you're in a table in a room together and playing.
I agree, and I do try to bring the socialization to my tables as best I can. I use Ninja OBS, and I always tell my players, "Hey, you want to see what all the players look like? Here's a video meeting room," and so they'll join in on that. We
Mm,
always hang out after the session, and we'll chat it up for like a good half hour.
yeah.
I love bringing in pop culture into my games, uh, just to hear a player say, "I know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
Um, but I hear you though. The social aspect can get lost, but with a good DM, it can be
Mm.
brought back.
Okay. So, what are some of the techniques you use? I mean, you talked about gathering together afterwards. What's some of the techniques you use to help bring that social aspect together in the virtual tabletop?
The social aspect, usually within the first session or two of a campaign, a lot of times, like I mentioned, I'll throw out pop culture references, and I also kind of weigh in on my players. Usually, by that, you could almost call me a chameleon in some sort, because
Mhm.
based on who my players are, what their reactions are on my little quips that I might say, pretty much determines what the socialization turns into. Um, for example, my Dragonlance players are older. I'm 43, almost 44, and most of my players are older than me. So I just to kind of bring in a little more pizzazz, punch, wow, wahoo, and
Mhm.
wow. Um, I brought it. I did a I paid for a cameo, a guest star, a famous actor.
Mhm.
I think he fits like clockwork for the
Mhm.
character that he is pretending to be, and I'll be playing this video to all my players at the end of DL4, Dragons of Despair. He'll
Okay.
be playing Elistan, if you remember Elistan. Um, and I do things like that. I'm actually working on. There's a couple other cameos, but I don't want to give away too much in case my players might watch this. But
Mhm. Yeah.
I'd like to do things like that. As for the social aspect, just talking and chatting. A lot of times it just becomes the love of D&D.
Mm.
Really, I mean, we will
Yeah.
just chat about. Recently in my Discord, we've been chatting a lot about Ravenloft.
Oh yeah, the new one's coming out too,
It just came out.
or
Yeah.
just came out. My son actually wants that for his birthday. So I
Nice.
gotta get my
Nice.
hand. I haven't been able to find a freaking copy of it yet, but I'm looking.
It's an interesting book, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting book. It was sad that I didn't see Lord Soth in there, but I kind of understand why. But that's a whole.
Didn't they convert him into another character, or kind of meld him with another character, or something like that? Because I heard some talk about that.
As far as I've always saw it, Lord Soth took a small vacation into Ravenloft. It never got retconned. So as far as we know, it's still canon. But then, and then he came back, and then, we've got his epilogue afterwards. But as far as I know, it existed. Lord Soth really was in Ravenloft for a little bit. But from what I heard, the authors had a little weren't exactly pleased about it.
I would imagine so.
Time. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I other than not seeing Lord Soth, it's a pretty good book.
Yeah, and for those that are not familiar with Ravenloft, or Ravenloft, however you want to pronounce it, it is basically a dark fantasy vampire ghoul world where basically evil runs everything, and you're a character within that realm, and fighting monsters, fighting vampires, fighting werewolves, stuff like that from classic horror movies. That's kind of what Ravenloft is for those of you who don't know. I was really interested in getting a hold of that book though. That had just come out. I'm sure they're going to come out with some other ones too. They may bring Lord Soth back just in another book or something like that, especially if this one takes off like they're expecting it to.
From what I heard, there are 2 more classic settings, D&D settings, that will be brought back to life in 5th edition.
Oh, really?
I don't know anything, but if I were a betting man, Dragonlance will come out next year.
Yep, I'm on board with that. Especially with how well developed the world it is. I mean, and the box set, the original box set, and stuff like that. It's made to be re-released. Especially with the following that it has. I'm surprised they haven't done it already.
And with the new books coming out starting in July with Dragons of Deceit. Oh yes, I'm excited for this.
That sounds
a whole new Dragonlance trilogy written by Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss.
Nice. I can't wait to see that. So
yeah.
All right. Well, trying to think of anything else. We kind of covered everything right now. I do want to talk a little bit more about Dragonlance and that world there. How is it that Dragonlance, what is it about Dragonlance that has really made it shine among Dungeons and Dragons? What is it about Dragonlance?
It's gritty without being too dark. It has a feel of realism to it that Faerun just kind of swept under the rug. Dragonlance has drama, action, romance, comedy, mystery, suspense. It's got it all. And when you go to these other realms and when you play Forgotten Realms over and over again, it's like this town's being attacked for the 10th time. Like, and with Dragonlance, it just kept evolving. I mean, when it became like the Age of Mortals, and 5th Age and everything, it reinvented itself. It never stayed the same. But then every time they redid remastered, I guess you could say, the original like War of the Lance, DL 1 through 16 if it was first edition, or
Right.
14. Every time they did it, they still held the twinkle in the eye that you get when you read the novel or play the module.
Yeah.
They didn't muck it up. I couldn't explain it. So even though Dragonlance evolved, they also kept the War of the Lance true to its nature.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that had to do with the writers and the creators who kept to the original story and held that candle, for everybody else, that you've seen, like how with Wizard of the Coast being owned by Hasbro,
Mm-hmm.
how commercialized everything has become with Dungeons and Dragons, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people left Dungeons and Dragons to go over to Paizo Piazzo to work on Pathfinder because of
Yep.
the world of corporate, the corporate, but big things, just wanted to make, let's see how we can make money off of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look at the books. I mean, they're $50 a pop, and
Yeah.
even the digital copies are $50 a pop. You're not getting any discounts for the digital copies too. You don't even have a physical book.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I will say, recently it does seem that Wizards of the Coast is listening to the player base.
yeah,
They've been doing a few questionnaires recently. I've been encouraging my Discord players to take the questionnaire.
okay,
And I can't say they're going to follow along. They're going to follow up with what we're all telling them, but I will say I think they're starting to listen to us. I mean, I not to get into debates, but I mean you got the whole thing like wheelchair accessibility.
hmm
In Candlekeep Mysteries, there was a module, one of the mini adventures in there.
yeah,
The dungeon had wheelchair accessibility possibilities. Um, I mean, and 20 years ago, they would have never done something like that,
10 years ago, yeah,
10 years ago. Yeah, exactly. And so I think they're recognizing there's a whole new base of D&D players,
hmm
a whole new base. And I think they're starting to listen to that base. And it pisses off the old players, and you know what, forget that. You don't get mad at it, just go along with it. Don't play or hate, participate.
yeah, and that's what's great. I mean, and like at the conventions, they have all versions, all editions being played. You have
Yeah,
the red box set all the way up to 5th edition being played at tables. So even if you don't like this new edition, what they're doing, you can always go back and play the previous ones. So like
absolutely.
2nd edition, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or 3.5, or Pathfinder, however you want to do it.
Mhm.
So really what's great about it is that these previous editions are still out there. Then
Yeah.
you have sites like DM's Guild, which
Mhm.
produces and puts up the old modules
I
from
have
the
products
originals.
on there. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. I actually have uh, Dragonlance Fantasy Grounds modules on the DM's Guild. Uh, they're called Dragonlances in Faerun because since Dragonlance is not an official 5th edition world, I had to convert
Mhm.
it to Faerun. Nice thing though is I was allowed to make it so anyone who buys it can convert it right back into Kryn, which you can see on all the YouTube campaigns that I have because that's what I
Okay.
use. Yeah, no, I love the DM's Guild. It's a pretty awesome site. I work with Team Tui, and they're pretty good people too.
Yeah, I mean, I just recently, as last night, bought stuff off of the DM's Guild. I bought a duet to play with my girlfriend who wants to play Dungeons and Dragons. So I got a duet, and it was free
Nice.
because what's nice about DM's Guild, if you go to dmsguild.com, dmsguild.com, is there's stuff you got to pay for, and then there's got stuff pay what you want. And you
Yeah.
can put 0 down and get it for free. And there's so many great things that are available or going on sale there. previous editions of games, modules, and stuff like that for Dungeons and Dragons. Old books that you can't get a hold of anymore, like the Dungeon Master's Guide to like Catacombs and Creative Campaigning, which we're going like for like $60 on eBay. I got it for $7 or $8 digitally off of DM's Guild. Same. It's not the same as holding the physical book in your hand, but it's it's the content. It's the content I'm interested in.
No, I can't even begin to count how much money I've forked out on the DM's Guild because of that. I've got so many Dragonlance old paperbacks turned PDF. It's insane.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been great having that kind of platform to not only buy from, but like what you're doing, contribute to.
Yeah.
And that's what's so amazing about DM's Guild is that you're able to contribute your own work there. And there's some really top-notch stuff that is out there that would never see the light of day if TSR Wizard of the Coast was in charge.
Yes, I agree. I think that DM's Guild allows variety. It allows creativity. I see a lot of LGBTQ plus on there, and I just think that's amazing. I think that's a great community access to use the DM's Guild like that.
Yeah.
I've seen a few other communities use the DM's Guild. It's just a great way where D&D fans of all walks of life can find something.
Yeah, that's what's great about it. And that's what's great about Dungeons and Dragons is that you got all kinds of people playing. You got, of course, you got your geeks and your nerds, but you also got the jocks and the cheerleaders and and the CEOs and everything else, writers and all that playing as well. And a lot of the writers for like Game of Thrones were old school Dungeons and Dragons people. And it's people like that that's helped bring Dungeons and Dragons into the spotlight, like fans, or like stars, like Vin Diesel plays Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
Great video about him playing with Matt Mercer.
Yeah.
Who else we got? We got Joe Magdaleno or whatever hell his last name is.
Oh yeah.
We got him. He plays. He has a whole basement, the Gary Gygax Memorial Dungeon, I think it is. It's a converted wine cellar, is what it is. So it has the dome roof and everything like that, and it's just amazing. If you ever seen it, it is an amazing thing to look at.
I've seen a picture, but that's
Vince Vaughn plays at his table. I mean, he's turning away A-list celebrities from his table because he doesn't have enough room for them to play.
Oh my gosh.
So, because everybody wants to get involved in this game. And one of the guys, Big Show, I think his name is, flies from Florida to Los Angeles every single week just to play this game.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So that's some hardcore players, man. Some real hardcore players, and that is the world of Dungeons and Dragons. You go to a convention. If anybody has not gone to a con yet, you got to go. You got to go to a con sometime just to see. Just to see the gaming room, where you have dozens and dozens of tables. Games going on at every single table, whether it's board games, whether it's RPGs, tabletop, whatever. And you can get in on just about any one of these games and just jump right in. And the people that are out there are so accepting, so open. I think one of the reasons why is because of how a lot of us grew up, which was being shunned by society, being shunned and pushed out by high school and college and stuff like that. And so we know what it's like to be the new person in town or to be the one that's not accepted. And so it's been great to see how open arms that, our community has been, especially like with the LGBTQ plus and everybody else and new players and old players who haven't played for years. been very open to all that, and it's been fantastic to see.
I fully agree. It's like we're in the gold, like, well, we've passed the golden age and now we're in the silver age of D&D. A whole new age, a whole new era. It's blossoming. I'm really excited to see where it's going to go. I've got good feelings about it. I totally agree. And especially like what you were saying, everyone of all different walks of life like D&D nowadays. I mean, you never know who you might play with at the next table.
Yeah, I have a non-binary at my table right now on the game that we play on Sundays.
Nice.
We have a transgender. We have, so we have all kind. We got, we have a gay guy, T-Roy. He's awesome. He's my neighbor. Actually lives up the road from me. Mm-hmm. So he actually, instead of playing on his computer, he comes down and jumps on with me.
Nice.
So love him to death. But we got all kinds, and that's what's so great about Dungeons and Dragons is that it accepts all kinds.
It accepts all kinds, yes.
Yes, because what's awesome is that at the end of the day, it's all about the game and about the fellowship.
I agree. I fully agree. I do.
Well, that's the end of our show. I want to thank you so much, Jason, for coming on, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If for all of you who are watching, especially if you're watching live, we have Bipolar Dragons going on tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is Bipolar Dragons. And you can watch us live on Facebook at The Bipolar Dragons. We're also on Twitch TV, twitch.tv/Bipolar DM. And as well as on YouTube as well, if you just do a search for the Bipolar DM or Bipolar Dragons. Thank you again, Jason, for being on there. I'm going to go ahead and kick you into the back room real quick. You don't have to hang around. You can go ahead and go if you want to. But thanks again for coming on, and look forward to having you at the table tomorrow.
Absolutely. And if I just may say, you can get help. You can get help. People will be there to help you if you need it.
Yes. Yes. If you are in crisis, you're going through stuff, get some help. Talk to somebody. Talk to anybody. And remember, like what I say at the end of every my show, take your meds.
Yes. Yes.
You got to take your meds because they don't do you a damn bit of good if they're just sitting in a bottle on your medicine cabinet. So
that's correct. You are not alone.
Yes, you are not alone. All right. Thank you again. And let's go ahead and go wrap this up. Wow, that was a great interview. I really look forward to having Jason at the table tomorrow. This is the Bipolar DM. Thank you again for watching. And again, our show is on the Bipolar DM is live 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Bipolar DM on Facebook Live, Twitch TV/Bipolar DM. We also have our Dungeons and Dragons game spinoff, the Bipolar Dragons, Sundays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also have those pre-recorded and available on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Twitch TV. So again, thank you so much for listening and for tuning in. And everybody remember, take your meds.
Thank you for listening to the Bipolar DM. They love sharing thoughts and ideas. See you next week, 7 p.m. Saturdays on WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows, and that makes for great talk radio.